This video is sponsored by World of Tanks. There are so many issues with this release, some are even outright corrupt. Rockstar announced GTA the Trilogy, the Definitive Edition, 1 month before its release. This was a clever marketing tactic for Rockstar because it allowed them to release a cash cow product quickly with as little drama as possible. The short window of time from reveal to release meant people kept their expectations low since they didn't have long to speculate. Knowing what we do now, we're able to see the beginning of this scummy behavior in the trailer itself. The trailer insinuates that these games were remastered by Rockstar Games. There is no mention of Grove Street Games from what I can tell, and their logo is nowhere to be found. At this point, it was the general consensus that the Definitive Edition was a true remaster, being developed by Rockstar Games' professional in-house developers. Not until 21 days before release, in a Newswire article, was it revealed that Grove Street Games was behind the Definitive Edition. This huge project was being outsourced to a company with about 21 employees who mainly work on making mobile ports that don't even work sometimes. For example, the Xbox 360 San Andreas port made by this company did not work. It was filled with various bugs that would only increase in volume as you played until it was completely unplayable. Oh, and they were fully aware of these issues but chose not to fix them even to this day. Rather, they decided to rebrand by changing their name from War Drum Studios to Grove Street Games. It's hard to be respectful of a studio that has disgraced these games for years with unstable, broken ports, and continue to insult its customers by refusing to patch broken products. You know who doesn't insult its customers with broken products? Wargaming. World of Tanks is a completely free PC game developed by Wargaming that lets you take part in massive battles across 40 different battle arenas and maps. These graphics outdo anything seen in GTA the Definitive Edition. The game has a huge arsenal of tanks to choose from, each with different playstyles. Whether you prefer running in and shooting everything in sight, using stealth tactics, or shooting from long range, the different classes and over 550 tanks will keep you busy with so many new things to try. This game really feels polished. From the graphics to the physics, it feels like a AAA game that you'd buy. Join over 100 million players in battle, earn experience, modify and upgrade your tank to create the best machine for your way of doing things. Experience historically accurate and authentic models and vehicle characteristics with believable physics. New players can use code TANKMANIA at registration to get 250 credits, 7 days of premium access, and a Tier 5 British Premium Heavy Tank Excelsior. If you want to blow some stuff up, register using the links in the description below. Rockstar, a company with 4,000 developers, couldn't be bothered to make something special for their fans. Instead, they entrusted the remastering of their legendary 3D-era games, which made them a multi-billion-dollar company, to a very small amateur company. They took advantage of the studio that has been porting these games over and over for years, and had them do it yet again. The result was literally a mobile game that was reworked for PC and current consoles through the Unreal Engine. This is not the definitive edition of these games, and I can guarantee that the employees at Grove Street Games know this. These games were about passion, creativity, and breaking the bounds technologically. This remaster contains none of those factors. Be it the graphics, character models, art style, etc., the quality is significantly lower than is expected for such an iconic trilogy of games. Rockstar Games have always been the golden standard for video games, but this remaster has put them below so many other studios. There are so many examples of game remasters that were executed far better than this train wreck. Spyro, Halo 1 and 2, Destroy All Humans, Mafia, Resident Evil, Shadow of the Colossus, Modern Warfare, just to name a few. We're going to cover everything: the models, the graphics, the UI, the soundtrack, the art style, Take-Two's actions, Rockstar's actions, Strauss Zelnick's lies, modders that were threatened, and more. This is the definitive problem with GTA the Definitive Edition.
Ladies and gentlemen, Rockstar Games has issued an apology. Oh boy, for me, this is important.
I don't think I have to recount the disastrous launch of this game with so many issues. Like, as far as disasters go, this is, top of the list.
So the Grand Theft Auto Trilogy was released on Thursday, and unfortunately, it's not very good.
Rockstar has gone into damage control. On November 19th, they issued an apology in which they admitted to the inferior quality of the games. Although they did not outright admit fault, they half did. They claimed the technical issues were unexpected. They confirmed that the games did not launch in a state that meets their own standards of quality or the standards that their fans have come to expect. Both of these statements make them sound like they had no idea what was going on within their own project. Why did you release it in that state, if that state does not meet your expectations? At the end, they also said, "Thank you for your patience and understanding while we work to ensure these games meet everyone's justifiably high standards. Our standards were not high quality. We wanted a working remaster. We got a cartoon monstrosity that barely runs." In response to the negative feedback, they're also returning the original games back to the store, which proves that the original games are still the definitive editions. Unfortunately, in this post, they have also told us that the development teams are being harassed on social media. Harassment is never okay. This was a small team of 21 people. They were given a monumental project that should have utilized a team of at least 300 developers in comparison to similar projects. This was unfair to the developers, and they do not deserve to have people attacking them. It's one thing to criticize a game, it's another to personally attack a person just because they're a developer on that game. These people are not public figures, they work a normal job as a game developer. Take your frustrations out on Rockstar and Take-Two, not the individuals who work at Grove Street Games. They did the best that they could. Things were fixed, and it's a good start. Some things were claimed to be fixed, but weren't. Only consoles received these fixes, by the way. PC didn't get any updates. I guess we're not as important. What does definitive mean? Understanding the definition of the word will tell us exactly what we should expect from a game with the title. These are the three basic definitions of definitive. Of a conclusion or agreement, done or reached decisively and with authority. The most authoritative of its kind. Definitive edition equals the final version of the game, or the version that has the complete set of extras. Rockstar held this version of these games so highly that they felt the only appropriate word to convey their superiority was definitive. They really committed to this version being the end-all, be-all, proving it further by removing the originals from the stores. The definitive edition replaced older versions as the complete and final version. From this prestigious title, and no longer being able to purchase older versions, it would make sense for them to be remastered and remade. The games would be built from the ground up, possibly in the Rage engine. Rather, they were simply ported over by people who don't know how to properly code. If I were in control, I would have two modes, original and definitive, both running in Rage. Original would be improved slightly to look, sound, and play better. For the definitive edition, using the newest technology in this new generation, I would have utilized ray tracing. The definitive edition would have Euphorian physics built in, reanimated cutscenes and in-game animations, more customization options, stat skills for all three games, more enterable buildings without load screens. It would be deserving of the title Definitive Edition. This game is a remaster, but it's lacking for a remaster. The main focus of a remaster is enhancing graphics while keeping a consistent art style. Unfortunately, Grove Street Games was not able to do that. After looking into some of their work on ArtStation, it's clear that they don't specialize in modeling or art. You don't need to dig to find that out though, just look at the character models. Halo 1 and 2 were remasters. Halo was remastered by Saber Interactive, a team of 1,500. They did an excellent job at updating their older counterparts for a modern experience. The entire campaign of Halo 1 and 2 was rebuilt painstakingly by hand. Each and every texture and model was updated to look significantly better. You could switch between the two versions as well, so they showed respect to the original games. Grove Street Games did not go through and remodel the world. They did so only for select locations. They used AI upscaling to handle the rest. And you can't blame them either, there's like 20 of them. Spyro was remastered by Toys for Bob, a studio with 100 to 200 employees. Destroy All Humans was remastered by Black Forest Games with only 83 employees, and it received good reviews. Shadow of the Colossus was developed by Bluepoint Games with 70 employees. Mafia was done by Hangar 13 with 115 employees. Look at the improvements. They rebuilt the entire map and the characters look real. 150 employees made this art. You compare any of these remasters with GTA Definitive Edition and you can see exactly how ridiculous this is. They sold us a college project for $60. They pulled data and assets from 20-year-old games and threw them in Unreal Engine. let Unreal Engine do all the work of lighting, loading LODs, running bad game code, and sold it for a filthy profit. They pocketed millions of dollars off the GTA name, yet paid it little to no respect. This is basically a cash grab. During the Media and Telecom Conference at MST, Zelnick was asked about how remasters and remakes fit in with the company's overall strategy. Think about this definitive edition, compared to other remasters in the industry as you listen to what he said. Remastering has always been part of the strategy. We've done differently than the competition. We don't just port titles over, we actually take the time to do the very best job we can making the title different for the new release, for the new technology that we're launching it on. Can you hear the pretentiousness in his response? We don't just port titles over, we actually take the time. This is the same guy that hired a studio of 21 people to remaster 3 games? The same guy who thought this art direction was good to go? That these rain artifacts on GTA 3's opening mission were clear and ready for millions of people to pay $60 for? Oh, but no, they don't swoop so low like these other companies. They actually take the time to do what needs to be done. I have a suggestion. Take the time to do just the bare minimum. Fix the broken rain textures that ruin the game, make models that look somewhat decent, and hire a studio that has the capability and track record for a AAA title, not a studio that's entire catalog consists of poorly made mobile ports. GTA 3, Vice City, and San Andreas each had their own individual art styles. GTA 3 was dark, moody, with a color scheme of greens, blues, and grays. Vice City was all-out 80s, neon lights, and the Miami sunset. San Andreas looked like California. You could see the sun beating down on the world with heat waves and the blue sky above. Now, each of these games looks the same, identical. They do not have their own personalities. They do not stand out from each other. They're just the same engine and assets running and being lit by different lights. They look like cartoons now. When we were playing GTA 3, Derek and I both thought it looked like Simpsons Hit and Run. This looks like you know what this looks like? This looks like The Simpsons Hit and Run. Doesn't it?
I was just thinking that.
Yeah?
I was thinking like, man, you know this reminds me of Simpsons Hit and Run. And I'm like, is it just because of the taxi?
It looks just like The Simpsons Hit and Run. It looks bad. And after this, I saw that Badger Goodger also thought that this looked like Simpsons Hit and Run.
In GTA 3, I feel that the entire city still looks too saturated and bright. I'm not even sure if it reminds me of Liberty City stories anymore. It reminds me of Simpsons Hit and Run.
I honestly believe that this entire project was made because of the YouTuber Welcome to the 80s. Rockstar definitely saw his videos and praise from the community. They figured we'd be willing to buy a game if it looked similar, but Take-Two, Rockstar Games, and Grove Street Games couldn't match the quality that this one guy had. Many strange art decisions were made for this game. Some flat out look tasteless. Awkward, wasted scenes that plop up a blood PNG over your screen are awful. This and the Busted Siren PNG look like stock images you'd get from an asset store. It hurts to look at some of these atrocious art choices. This is supposed to be a AAA game. They needed a good sense of aesthetic judgment, but this art direction lacks any of that. The motion blur looks strange and creates unnatural effects that can be distracting. It can be disabled, but why does the motion blur look like this to begin with? How is it that 343 got destroyed by the community over the graphics in Halo Infinite, yet Rockstar gets a pass on such a horrible release? Craig became the biggest meme that caused them to postpone their game an entire year. Rockstar releases this and issues a simple apology? We're sorry you have high expectations. Oh, and we had no way of knowing that this would be so bad. Take some accountability like your peers, Rockstar. The character models look like Mii's, Sims, or RuneScape characters. They look unacceptably bad. This is not worth $60. Knowing what the development team had to work with, you can see they clearly didn't have the skill or manpower required to take on this job and make it look realistic. This is not a personal attack against them. They work for a company that signed up for a responsibility they had no right signing on for. San Andreas looks more realistic than this definitive edition does. These were not cartoon characters. These games never felt like cartoons. It was always gritty. These games were about gangs, the mob, and stealing cars. They did the best that they could to make it look realistic. This is why GTA 4 and 5 are not cartoon games. Even if they did decide to go with the cartoon look, these deformation issues still don't make it acceptable. The original San Andreas has a dense layer of fog to hide the short draw distance. The decisions they made at the time were in pursuit of a more realistic look with the hardware limitations they had at the time. They did a great job. Now that we've got the technology of 2020, we can simulate photorealistic environments in real time. Many leading game studios create extremely realistic worlds. Now we've got ray tracing, technology that casts real lights that interact with surfaces. But this definitive edition just uses typical lighting that's out of the box in Unreal Engine. The coolest thing that they've added to this game is real-time reflections without ray tracing, but this isn't something they've created. This is something that comes with Unreal Engine. Unreal Engine is doing all of the work here. Anything that looks good can be attributed to the incredible Unreal Engine, and not the Grove Street Games team. Things that you'd think are no-brainers, things someone with no game development experience would call out, were not fixed. San Andreas looks terrible from up high. The water looks bizarre. At certain angles, the water completely deloads. You can see the edge of the water and the edge of the playable world. There is zero volumetric fog. It's a clear view from Los Angeles to Nevada and San Francisco. I'm using real names so you can think about how ridiculous that sounds. If players wanted to have this clear look, that's fine. It should be possible to enable it, but the default look should have had some level of fog to give a greater sense of scale. Fortunately, modders have already fixed this in just a few days. For an open world, weather is important. Grove Street Games let this pass quality inspection. Is there any level of quality control at Grove Street Games? Does Rockstar analyze the games they publish and distribute? Considering the fact that they launched this game with data leaks, I'd say that they don't. To make new assets look better and more detailed, Grove Street Games used machine learning to upscale certain textures, but also reworked some by hand. When you've only got 21 employees, these are the types of decisions you make. They obviously used all sorts of cheaty tricks to make this game look better. One of the most talked about that I've seen is Tough Nut Donuts. They auto-smoothed the donut, but also auto-smoothed the nut. Thankfully, modders have already fixed this mistake as well. I hope the modders picking up the pieces from Grove Street Games don't get threatened by Take-Two like last time. Other textures were untouched. They still have their PS2 resolutions. Some props and textures were ripped straight from GTA 5. An iFruit ad in Vice City shows a smartphone. Vice City takes place in 1986, about 20 years before these devices existed. Pair these mistakes with typos like Welcome and Our Guitar, and you realize how little attention to detail these developers gave this product, or even attention to just typical normal things that you would expect attention to be given to. This isn't high expectations, this is spelling. All of this makes for very lazy world building. What were you thinking handing off this task to 21 people? Assets can be seen spawning in front of you while you're navigating the world. This issue is not even noticeable in GTA 5, a game with much more going on. For a definitive edition, you'd expect the game to run smoothly and not break immersion every 4 seconds. Look at this comparison and pay attention to how vehicles and pedestrians are handled as you approach them. Even if the original trilogy had vehicles popping in, this definitive edition should have fixed that. Other objects like trees can be seen flashing as you approach them. Typically, game artists have multiple versions of objects called LODs. The different versions of these objects have different amounts of polys, higher or lower levels of detail. Artists make decisions on what to sacrifice on their models in order to maintain the best look while using the least amount of polys. It looks like Grove Street Games used an auto-generation version of this with Unreal Engine. This makes the world look like a low-detail Google Maps image. The player should not be able to see this. GTA 5 does this correctly. When you look at a lower detailed LOD in GTA, it updates the closer you look at it, to the more detailed versions of the models. The definitive edition acts like it has no idea that you're looking at it. Two things would help: fog, and increasing the level of detail the closer you look at something, even if you're looking at that thing through a gun. These issues are glaring, but even simple ones can look stupid, like grass updating within such a close proximity, with a clear distinctive line to separate no grass from grass. Collisions in multiple locations are still present while the models are absent. The most well-known of these is the invisible bridge in San Andreas. They claim to have this patch, but the bridge is still invisible. GTA 3 also has some weird stuff going on with these rails. Every time I go over to them, they explode. The new lighting can look great and it can be really interesting to see in action, but it also ruins many cutscenes. This game can look so dark at times, we can't even see the characters' faces, and shadows can look really bad in certain situations. I think it's some form of ambient occlusion acting weird. Modders have added better lighting upgrades to fix some of these issues, but this is a major, fundamental aspect of this definitive edition, so it's the one thing you'd expect they'd get right. The darkness is atrocious in most cases and literally ruins the story. Car models were unchanged. This means they didn't use the versions of the models from the Xbox updated version. You may have seen a glitch going around where if you swerve left and right, the car would exponentially grow, but this isn't something that just happens at any time. You have to do a series of steps to achieve what's called the ghost car for this effect to occur. This car also has the ability to go through objects. This was in the original game, so this isn't new. I think it's fine to keep something like this in because it would be annoying if they patched fun glitches that people liked. Some 3D models replaced flat textures, like non-purchasable weapons and ammunition. The developers said that they started with hero locations and characters, but realized that more objects needed the same treatment for things to look right. An amazing effect they've added to the buildings is the parallaxing look. I first saw this on Spider-Man on PlayStation 4, and it looks like they've done the same thing here. It makes the world feel bigger, although they didn't do it perfectly. If you look at any of these parallaxing effects from the side, the illusion falls apart pretty quickly. The sounds are all wrong. It's honestly lazy, or just a horrible direction choice. But they decided to make all the sound effects in the menus for each game be the ones from San Andreas. Again, modders have corrected the incompetent decisions made by Rockstar. We're blaming Rockstar for this because Grove Street Games made the game, but Rockstar distributed it with their seal of approval. The minimap looks much better, and they've added GPS. Unfortunately, when you look back, the map doesn't flip to orient itself properly, yet it still flashes as if it's going to alternate. Also, you can't move the camera in this mode, it's stuck in a fixed position. When aiming your gun, they've added this ugly glowing outline. Please remove this effect, it adds nothing, nobody likes it, and it just ruins the art style of these original games. They couldn't even get the Rockstar logo correct on the map. That level of incompetence and lack of quality control is abysmal. The gameplay has not really been updated. They made it sound like it was going to be upgraded to include GTA 5 style gun mechanics, but it just plays horribly. It feels so outdated and unnatural. The animations look embarrassing. Is this really a new Rockstar game in 2021? Nearly 2022? They could have added so much to the gun mechanics, but they chose to do the least work possible. This is not the definitive edition of these games. Vice City is not Vice City without Billie Jean. That song made the game what it was. They're making millions off of this release. This multi-billion-dollar company really couldn't spare what would be pocket change to them in order to complete the original song catalog? 11 songs were removed from GTA Vice City and 18 from San Andreas. That's a total of 29 songs. That's about 87 minutes of content cut from the radio. We're talking about a downgrade. This objectively is worse than before. By the way, modders have already fixed this too. My little brother's game crashed 3 times in a row on a bank heist mission with Catalina in San Andreas. These games are badly unoptimized and poorly ported. Apparently, they're running 2 things at once. After inspecting the game files, Heavy says, Rockstar Games made a plugin which makes Unreal and Rage work together, and then the head of Grove Street Games also made a plugin which makes support for old file types. Grove Street Games have done so many hack fixes to address issues, it's a chain break. Fix or touch one thing and the rest break. When we were playing Vice City, after a certain mission, coffins got stuck on the street on our playthrough. I don't know what the problem was, and I can't find anything about it online. It's probably something that was in the original game, but it's stupid. The game is buggy, and it has higher minimum requirements than that of Red Dead 2. Looking back and forth causes frame rate drop. On RTX 3070, you get about 35 FPS. The game freezes up when flying the 747. This game is frustrating to so many people. Watch some of the videos on the 360 San Andreas port that Grove Street Games made, and you'll see that these people are in way over their heads. This is a job for professionals. The price of the game was that of a AAA title. I've seen much better indie games that run way smoother and with less bugs than this. Games made by less people and sold for much cheaper. For example, Cuphead was made by about 25 people. Remember that this game was technically made by Rockstar. All Grove Street Games had to do was make it look better. Take-Two went after modders and viciously attacked the community that was keeping their old games alive and operational. They knew that these comparisons would be made, modders versus Grove Street Games, and they didn't like that. Pretty much all of the features that they added were already implemented by modders, and they did a better job as well. The weapon wheel mod was already available for free, the game map with GPS was already available for free, actual enhancements to gunplay were already available for free, achievements were already available for free. Did you catch the main problem there? It's that it was all available for free. How's Take-Two gonna make more dirty money off the loyal fans of GTA if better alternatives are already free to download? Modders did more than add a few features. They literally made the game playable. These original games do not run well on today's hardware, so modders went out of their way to make the games functional, and you needed a legit copy of the game to play with these mods. Modders were doing Rockstar's job for them. All the while, Rockstar continued to knowingly sell broken games and let the community fix it for them. After all of that, they threatened them with legal action. Grade A company right there. Some issues I've seen myself or around the community that weren't the end of the world, but definitely don't argue the case that this is the definitive edition of these games, would be that Claude and Tommy still can't swim. I don't think it's a big deal, it stays true to the original games, but still they can't swim. They didn't change the same ancient physics and AI that the originals had, which is fine if they were just gonna stick to making it look better. Trees don't shake when you fly near them anymore. Water doesn't splash in Vice City like it used to. They removed the co-op feature from San Andreas. This is a major downgrade. They never should have touched this, and if they had to remove it, how nice would it have been of them if they instead included online multiplayer for 3 or so friends to free roam together in place of the old local co-op button. At launch, myself and every other PC player couldn't play the game. When you went to launch the game, it constantly popped up that you're offline, blocking you from playing, and telling you that your only option is to quit the game you bought. From what we can tell, the definitive edition is basically online only, and if you don't have the Remember Me button checked on your Rockstar Games launcher, you won't be able to play without the internet. Rockstar disabled their services and pulled the game from people's libraries for 4 days, while some PlayStation players were able to play the game an entire day before launch. PC players got the short end of the stick. We had to suffer through this because they don't know how to not leak game files during a game release. Console players also got to preload the games. PC players were not given the option to preload because it's only on their awful Rockstar launcher. Rockstar Games announced Grand Theft Auto: The Trilogy, the definitive edition, on October 8th, 2021, 34 days before release. The original games defined a generation, changing how we think of games and what they're capable of. Rockstar pushed ahead of everyone else with innovative gameplay and world building we hadn't seen before. While GTA 3 wasn't the first open world game, it was the biggest, most painstakingly detailed game world created up until that point. The attention to detail Rockstar is known for shined bright in these games from 2001 to 2004. The success of GTA 5, the most profitable media title ever created, was built on the shoulders of this original trilogy and the fans that fueled its advancement. GTA 3 was the first GTA game to bring the camera down to the character's level in 3D. Later, when GTA Vice City came out, they added a map to the pause menu, and the main character had a voice for the first time. Finally, when San Andreas was released, they mastered the open world genre. Multiple cities, drivable vehicles by land, air, or water, and a character that could rule the streets and swim. The graphical updates do not do the original games justice and match the quality of the graphics expected in today's games. You ruined the music, delivered poor game stability, and more. These games are built upon unpatched mobile ports. This is a cash grab report with mediocre lighting and assets. Grove Street Games does not deserve to have the name they chose. Porting old legendary games over to phones and consoles does not make you the original pioneer of those games, especially if you ruin them in the process. Please do not touch anything else from GTA, not without a major reworking of your company. At release, these original games were revolutionary. Whether it was the innovative technology, immersive gameplay, or detailed storyline, everyone had a reason to be mystified. The definitive edition does not live up to the original's innovation. This game tarnishes the games of our childhood, almost as if it's one final nail in the coffin for Take-Two against fans. Everything that Rockstar Games is today, everything, is thanks to these games, and the fans that spent money on them. You treated your roots like trash and axed them, all for some more money. We live in an age where the best company in gaming has turned into a monster and turned its back on us. Take-Two and Rockstar, your customers have been threatened and betrayed by you. fix it, you're on the verge of losing everyone's respect. Imagine releasing a remaster that's so bad that you have to offer the original version back to customers to minimize the damage.